May 1945, Bavaria. The war in Europe had been over for 3 days. Officer Compound B at the American POW facility near Munich held 41 German prisoners, 31 Wehrmacht officers, 10 SS. On the morning of May 11th, Corporal James Webb, 24 years old, from Atlanta, entered the compound to change a dressing on a shrapnel wound in an SS prisoner's left forearm. The prisoner's name was Karl Brenner, Obersturmbannführer, 41 years old. He had been in captivity for 6 days. For the first 2 days, his wound had been treated without incident. White American medics. Routine. Webb was not a white American medic. Brenner pulled his arm back before Webb had set down his kit. He said one sentence. He said it quietly, without anger, in the tone of a man stating a policy rather than making a scene. Then he turned his face away. Webb did not argue. He did not ask Brenner to reconsider. He picked up his kit, opened his medical form, and wrote 4 words in the refusal box. Treatment refused by prisoner. He closed the form. He walked out. This is the story of what happened next, and what Patton wrote on a single piece of paper that nobody saw for 9 days. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe. New stories every day. Webb had been an Army medic for 2 years. He had treated men in France, in the Ardennes, in Germany. He had treated Americans, Germans, civilians, prisoners. He treated whoever was in front of him. He went to his next patient. That afternoon, Brenner said almost nothing to the other SS officers in the compound. He didn't make speeches. He didn't gather men around him or issue instructions. He was a lieutenant colonel. He didn't need to. He simply watched. When the routine afternoon medical checks came around, 2 younger SS officers were in line. Brenner was nearby. He looked at the first one. Not a word. Just looked. The first officer hesitated, then declined. Brenner looked at the second. The second declined. The Wehrmacht officers in the compound accepted their checks without incident. The camp commander, Captain David Reese, 31, from Columbus, submitted his report to 3rd Army headquarters that evening. He was specific. 1 prisoner had initially refused treatment. By afternoon, 2 more had followed. Brenner had communicated nothing verbally. His rank was doing the work. Reese was honest about what concerned him. It wasn't Brenner's wound. It was the pattern. Brenner's influence, if left unchecked, could spread through the SS prisoners and begin undermining routine medical care across the compound. Everyone assumed Patton would come to the camp, or issue punishment orders, or summon Brenner for a confrontation. Instead, the report came back the next morning. 1 page. Patton had read it, turned it over, and written something on the back in his own hand. Nobody at the camp was shown what he had written. His aide had sealed it. The orders it contained were transmitted separately, and their source was not explained to the personnel receiving them. What happened next was this. On the morning of May 12th, every prisoner contact duty in Officer Compound B had been reassigned. Not just the medic, the soldiers distributing meals, the kitchen workers, the laundry detail, the bathhouse attendants, the barber, the clothing exchange counter, the supply window, the mail distribution, the barracks inspection team. Every daily interaction between the prisoners and American personnel now involved Black American soldiers. The compound looked the same. The schedule was the same. The meals arrived at the same time. The medical checks ran in the same order. The only thing that had changed was who was doing each job. And every one of those soldiers had received the same instruction. No arguments, no retaliation, no sarcasm, no acknowledgement of what had happened. Perform your duty exactly as you always have, with complete professionalism and respect. They did. Every one of them. Webb came back to Brenner's cell that morning to change the dressing. He said what he always said, "Good morning. I'm here to change your dressing." He set down his kit. Brenner refused again. Webb recorded it, walked out. The 2 younger SS officers who had followed Brenner's example on the first day looked at the meal being distributed by Black American soldiers. They ate. They said nothing about it to each other or to Brenner. Brenner noticed. He refused the meal. Over the following days, the compound operated exactly as it always had. Meals arrived. Laundry was processed. The barber came. Medical checks were conducted. Supply requests were fulfilled. Mail was distributed. Every service was available to Brenner. Nobody withheld anything. Nobody made a point of anything. Nobody looked at him with satisfaction or contempt. Nobody acknowledged what he was doing or what it was costing him. That professional silence was the thing he had no answer for. In his previous experience, contempt had always provoked a response: confrontation, anger, humiliation, something that confirmed what he believed about the people he held in contempt. Here, there was nothing. Every man he refused simply recorded the refusal and moved on to the next patient. The compound continued its routine around his decision as if his decision were unremarkable. That was the part he had no answer for. His wound began to worsen by the third day. The dressing had not been changed since before the reassignment. The skin around the shrapnel entry was red and hot. By the fifth day, there was visible swelling. By the seventh, fever. He shivered through the nights. He refused the blanket offered by the supplies soldier. He refused the morning meal 3 days in a row. He refused the barber. He refused the clothing exchange. Each refusal cost him something concrete. He was aware of this. He was also aware that no one was acknowledging it. The other 2 SS officers had quietly resumed accepting all services by the 4th day. They offered Brenner no explanation. He gave them no response. His influence over them had not broken through confrontation or argument. It had simply been outlasted, worn down by days of watching men perform their duties with complete indifference to whether or not their services were accepted. Brenner watched them accept their meals. He said nothing. On the 8th day, Webb came to the compound for routine morning checks. He went through the ward in order, patient by patient. He reached Brenner's cell. He stopped. Brenner was standing in the doorway. His arm was visibly infected, the skin tight and discolored, the wound weeping. He was running a significant fever. He had difficulty standing straight. He had been standing like this for some time. It had taken effort to get here. He did not speak. Webb looked at him, not with satisfaction, not with contempt. The same expression he brought to every patient. "Have a seat," he said. Nothing else. No reference to the past 8 days. No acknowledgement of what it had cost either of them to arrive at this moment. Brenner sat down. Webb opened his kit. He cleaned the wound. He debrided the infected tissue. He applied a proper dressing. He administered the medication Brenner needed. He worked quietly and precisely, the way he always worked. When he was done, he noted the treatment in the medical form, closed it, and gathered his kit. He did not say anything about the days prior. He did not reference the refusal. He did not make Brenner acknowledge anything. He moved to the next patient. The following morning, the meal distribution came through the compound. The soldier working the cart, a corporal from Mississippi named Thomas Garrett, stopped at Brenner's cell with the tray. Brenner took it. He did not look up. He did not speak. He sat with the tray in his hands for a moment before he began eating. Garrett had already moved on to the next cell. What Brenner had held for 8 days had not been taken from him by force. There had been no confrontation, no punishment, no public humiliation. No one had argued with him. No one had tried to prove anything to him. No one had given him a speech. There had only been the steady, unhurried professionalism of men who refused to acknowledge that anything unusual was happening. An ideology requires an enemy that confirms it. Brenner's required men who reacted to his contempt with anger or fear or resentment, something that could be read as evidence. Webb had given him none of that. Neither had any of the others. They had simply done their jobs and moved on. That was what collapsed him. Not defeat, not coercion. The impossibility of sustaining contempt in the face of someone who would not confirm it. Captain Reese sent a brief notification to 3rd Army headquarters that afternoon. Patton's response to the report read, "Effective immediately, assign Negro personnel to all prisoner contact duties within Officer Compound B. No discussion, no retaliation, no exceptions. Notify this headquarters when Obersturmbannführer Brenner voluntarily accepts medical treatment. G. S. Patton." Below that, added after Reese's notification arrived in a different pen. One word. Noted. Webb was never told that his name had appeared in any report. He was never told that his four-word notation on a medical form had reached Patton's desk. He continued his rounds. He was asked about it decades later in an interview for a military history project on the integration of the post-war Army. The interviewer had found Webb through service records. He had been living in Atlanta, working as a registered nurse for 30 years. He was asked if he had known, at the time, that anything significant was happening. He thought about it. "I knew he was refusing," he said. "I knew why." He paused. He was a patient. The wound needed treating. When he was ready, I'd be there. The interviewer asked how he kept from reacting. "There was nothing to react to," Webb said. "He had a problem. It was his problem. My job was to be ready when he decided to let me do it." He looked at his hands. "You don't let somebody else's problem become yours." He was quiet for a moment. I guess Patton thought the same thing. Was Patton's response the right one, or should Brenner have faced formal punishment? Let us know in the comments. And if you want to hear about the time Patton's men caught German children stealing Army rations and what Patton did when he found out, that story is next. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it.